Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wrestler Spotlight. I am the Maritime Warrior, joined once again by one of the best guys I know. I don't know about if you know this guy. From Jolteon Plays and Wrestling with the Bros, Joel Gallant. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic this morning. Glad to be back on the channel. Yep. I love doing these videos. The first one we did, the CM Punk one, did very well. So I'll let you introduce what we're doing today.
So Joel has two favorite wrestlers. One is still active. One, unfortunately, no longer with us. But our topic today is the great Eddie Guerrero.
Man, Eddie Guerrero, what a guy. The charisma that oozed from this man. The athletic ability. He's just incredible.
Yeah, I always loved Eddie Guerrero. As a kid, I didn't appreciate Eddie Guerrero like I did later on. And as a kid, you're always looking at the flashy characters, the big, larger-than-life guys, and you kind of overlook the smaller, very athletic guys. And Eddie Guerrero was probably the best out of all of them.
Yeah, Eddie was, for his size, what he did. Well, I mean, smaller guys are, high flyers and better wrestlers than, the big shows and Mark Henry's. They're there for the show of being huge.
Mm-hmm. They're more attraction, but this was, like in the early days, Eddie Guerrero would have been a great opening card match or a mid-carder at best, but he achieved way more than that. So let's get started. His early career. So the earliest I could find Eddie Guerrero, he worked for his own family's promotion called Win. It was wrestling in, I forget the name. It was in Mexico and, on the border in the States and all that. Here he first started to feud with Conan El Barbaro. And we all know him as Conan. Quick thoughts on Conan.
Conan, a guy that has been great at times. He was, I don't know, never really paid attention to Conan, I should say. He did WCW. That's what everyone knows him for the longest being in.
Yeah.
He's still, I don't know if he's still wrestling today, but I know he's
not wrestling. He's in AAA. I think he's in management there. Much like Leo Burke in the Maritimes, where he was called the Hulk Hogan of the Maritimes, Conan was called the Hulk Hogan of Mexico, even though he's Cuban. But he became a massive pop culture superstar once he lost his mask. A lot of people don't even know this. While he was feuding with Eddie at this point in time, Conan wore a mask. He became such a huge star. Like, he was in these telenovelas, I think they're called, the Mexican soap operas and all that. And he was a massive star in the mid-90s. Conan was like the man. And they traded this company's world title back and forth. Eddie Guerrero he worked for EMLL, which would become CMLL later on. And in 1992, Eddie Guerrero would lose the Eddie Guerrero name and become Máscara Mágica, the magic mask. And he would be under a mask. This would be for less than a year. Did you have any idea about this?
I did know Eddie wrestled under a mask.
He did wrestle under a few masks. In Japan as well. He was Black Tiger. He wasn't the first. He was the second Black Tiger. And he was very successful with it. His New Japan career was he was never Eddie Guerrero. He was just Black Tiger. So in 1993, something very interesting happened. EMLL, who is now CMLL, they weren't pushing the young talent. They were going with the old talent like Fuerza Guerrera and El Rayo de Jalisco. And what happened is Antonio Pena took the young talent and created AAA. And he brought in Conan as his top star. And he brought in Eddie Guerrero. But Eddie Guerrero's first match in AAA, he's under the mask. He's Máscara Mágica. It's a 6-man tag team match with him and Máscara. What's his name? I don't remember his name. It was Sacred Mask anyway. And Octagon. Máscara Sagrada. There you go. And you can see Eddie's mask is already undone. And when they introduce him as Eddie Guerrero and he takes off the mask. That's very taboo in Mexico. The mask is your identity. But this really showed who Eddie Guerrero was. He wasn't Máscara Mágica. He's the son of Gory Guerrero. Gory Guerrero died in 1990. Eddie was maybe 20, in his early 20s when his father passed away, but his father was pretty old. I remember his father, his older brother, Chavo, had a son around the same time as his own father. So his younger brother was also the uncle of his son that were the same age, which is Chavo Guerrero Jr. So Gory Guerrero, kept going at it, I guess, for a lot longer than most. But early years of Eddie Guerrero in AAA, he's teaming up with El Hijo del Santo. So, backstory here, El Hijo del Santo is the son of El Santo, which is probably the biggest Mexican wrestling star ever. And he teamed up with Gory Guerrero. And they had a tag team called La Pareja Atómica, the atomic pair. So Eddie Guerrero started teaming up with El Hijo del Santo. The team never really worked. Eddie, I think, wanted to make his own mark in wrestling and didn't want to be compared to his dad. El Hijo del Santo looks exactly like his dad. He's got the silver mask, silver pants, the cape. It's El Santo. There's a match with El Hijo del Santo, Eddie Guerrero, and Art Barr. And if you ever get the chance to see this match, it's kind of funny because Art Barr is sort of like this heel character. And he's developed a friendship with Eddie Guerrero. But Guerrero's teaming up with El Hijo del Santo. Santo is basically like, no, don't cheat. We got to do this fair. And Art Barr is like coming into the ring illegally and attacking. So Art Barr basically had enough of El Santo and grabs a kid's El Santo mask from the crowd, puts it on, beats the tar out of Eddie, throws the mask in the ring, runs around the ring, and then grabs Eddie. He's like, oh my God, Eddie, did you see what El Santo did? Even though the Art Barr has these colorful United States of America pants. Right there, this became the seeds planted for the start of Los Gringos Locos, which is what Eddie Guerrero was first known for. If you look at early ECW days, Eddie's wearing the America pants. That's from El Gringos Locos. Do you have any thoughts on this?
This I haven't really watched a lot of Eddie's earlier stuff. I mostly know Eddie from WCW onwards, and also the New Japan stint he did.
Yeah. So he would be crowned one half of the very first. Sorry about that. AAA Tag Team Champions with Art Barr. Art Barr wasn't Art Barr. He was actually the Love Machine. That was his gimmick in Mexico. So Art Barr brought over the Pacific Northwest Tag Team titles, and they just rechristened them the AAA Tag Team titles. And they were the first champions. And then, they were the second champions. They beat Santo and Octagon to win the belts. And then there was the big WCW pay-per-view, or WCW produced pay-per-view called When Worlds Collide. And this has been called one of the greatest pay-per-views ever. It was all AAA, but it was like WCW produced, and a tag team match, not for the belts, but it was a mask versus hair match, and I believe it got a 5 stars from Uncle Dave, which means nothing to me, but might as well mention it here. Eddie and Art get their head shaved, and you're thinking these guys are gonna skyrocket. They're on their way to ECW. I think that was the plan. Then WCW and maybe WWF, and they're gonna be this massive tag team. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later, Art Barr dies of a heart attack at only 28 years old. And this is Eddie Guerrero's second tragedy. First, his father, now Art Barr. This very successful, like for years, even after my dog's freaking out now. Even after he went to ECW and WCW, there was this, his time in AAA was his best, He did really well with that. So he would then move on to ECW. And ECW, his time there was relatively short. Do you remember this one?
Yes.
So his first match there, he wins the ECW World TV title from Too Cold Scorpio. Now, it's rare. It happens, but it's rare that you join a promotion and you're immediately winning a title.
Yeah, there's only a few instances that come to the top of my head. One being Santino Marella winning the IC title.
Carlito
winning the US title.
And, off the top of my head, those are the only ones.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened elsewhere. But Eddie Guerrero started feuding with the shooter Dean Malenko, which would be one of his best friends throughout wrestling. And they would feud over the TV title, and they would have a series of half-hour draws, just putting on wrestling clinics. They even had a show called the Guerrero Malenko Classic in ECW. like ECW, the way it would work, they would have their big show, and they would, on ECW TV, they'd show like every how can I say this? Some of the matches on Hardcore TV, along with promos and all that. And the show that they would have the Saturday, they would sell it on video, call and reserve your show, whatever. And one of that show was the Guerrero Malenko Classic. And I've seen the match. I'm watching ECW in 1995 right now. And they had a few really damn good matches. Very spot fest-like, but in a technical wrestling way. You've seen Guerrero and Malenko fight in WCW and ECW. You might have seen them in the WWF too. Thoughts on this, his early times with Malenko?
His early times with Malenko would evolve into something bigger. Yeah, like you said, they were best friends. Two more came along around the end of WCW, ECW, into WWF, I should say.
Yeah.
But two great wrestlers just giving the fans incredible matches.
Yeah.
You could say that these two, along with Rey Mysterio, paved the way for guys like Ricochet and guys like Will Ospreay and guys like Speedball.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because if you put yourself in that time period, you're like, they're nothing special. And then as adults, you look at it and you're like, you realize that they're as important to the wrestling business as a Hulk Hogan, as an Ultimate Warrior, as a Stone Cold, as a Rock. They weren't the main event guys, but they were the core of pro wrestling. You came to see the big main event stars, but you stayed to see them wrestle, because not only were they that damn good, they were that damn entertaining. Like, you look at Eddie Guerrero, like, as a kid, he was never my favorite, and as an adult, I'm like, why wasn't he? The guy was a great wrestler. The guy was entertaining as hell. Like, his WWE stuff, the lie, cheat, and steal stuff, it's incredible.
It
So,
really is.
yes, very much.